15 years, and you imagine other countries with the lack of infrastructure that we have, and then you see that it does become a bit of a problem. So yeah, it's a fair enough point. I mean, just to close on the bandwidth topic, I'll put you on the spot here, Roy. Can you tell me who you think was the quickest on average? Which country?
I think it's there is two big clusters of fast countries. There is some in Eastern Europe.
I'm going to pin you down to the fastest one. Which one do you think was the fastest?
Romania, I think, is the fastest. I think Hungary is not far behind.
According to this report, it was South Korea.
Yeah. I was going to go to. I'm talking about Europe now. I know it's Korea. Yeah, that's the chance. Actually, in Asia, that's the fastest. Korea has got lots of gigabyte networks. But in Europe, the Romania is among the leaders, which is surprising because people think they have all these stereotypes about Romania. And the UK is not doing too well. Actually, Spain is doing pretty okay, if I remember correctly. But I think after Korea, it's another Asian country, and I think the United States is like 20th or something. It's really quite.
It made very interesting reading, and I certainly found it interesting, and it made a lot of sense for around here. I've often complained about the speeds that we received in this area, and I always assumed one of the main reasons was because we're so far away from Luton, which is probably the biggest locality to us. And also because we're a small village and not seen as a priority. But no, it made very interesting reading, and certainly it does highlight the lack of infrastructure for what the government is claiming.
Yeah, Korea is a very dense kind of market in the population. It's probably the same in Japan to a certain extent, because the amount of copper you need to ensure that people are interconnected with high capacity wires or whatever it is to even cellular bridges sometimes. The amount of copper you need is pretty small. If you're looking at a country like Canada, do you know how well run Canada was as a whole, not as let's see.
I don't think it says. I've just got an overview of the report in the Inquirer. I don't think it mentions Canada specifically. No, it doesn't. It was just an overview with a view to talking about the UK. I assume it's been written by somebody.
It's some of these countries, very well developed countries, but the things are spread apart in such a way so that they probably have connections like to the United States from them down in the south, but they still are quite far apart. The size of the population compared to the size of the country, and that's kind of tricky when you try to charge people for infrastructure, but you don't really have many clients to work with. And I suppose you've heard about the UBB debate recently. We've never mentioned this in the show, but in Canada they try to start charging people by bandwidth that they consume, charging people for exceeding certain caps, which aren't very generous caps. I mean, I've seen them before. If you use a gigabyte a day, which you probably would do if you use things like SSH over the network with like graphical user interfaces, then you have to pay certain fines to do so. And people say there is no justification for it. It's just really an excuse for them to use the cartel to exert more money, instead of saying, okay, well, our interest is to deliver to people of all economic background as much packet as we can. They could even restrict things based on things like video, and that's debatable, of course, because of YouTube and things like that. But again, this is going to cripple.
I mean, without going off topic, any just very briefly, the fair use policy, certainly for certain service providers in the UK, does have a facility that will remove streaming video if anybody exceeds whatever the fair use policy cap is. And it was fun. I was watching an advert for Virgin Media today, and in bold white letters at the bottom of the screen, halfway through the ad, was subject to fair use policy. And for my service provider, that for my mobile phone, I believe I have 5 gigabytes per month for my mobile phone, and that's supposed to be unlimited, but obviously the 5 gigabytes is the fair use. And after that, they'll start cutting back on my streaming. And then after that, I believe there's a fine. I could be wrong. I'll have to double check on that. But certainly there are some service providers that do impose a fine already in the UK under the banner of fair use, which to me doesn't sound very fair when they advertise it as being unlimited. But that's probably another topic that we can have a debate when there's more of us with.
I think they would try to improve that. I wrote an article think we talk too much about the UK and we kind of exclude some people who aren't here. But the thing I found out when I was looking for ISPs, and I contacted just about all of them that do service around here back in was in March. What I found is all of them would repeatedly, like at least twice, tell you before you even do any orders or any questions, they will tell you that that it's as you say, they had to put it in bold font to say something like, well, this is basically subjected to conditions we don't exactly talk about, and you're not guaranteed these speeds, and so on and so forth, because apparently people have been suing these companies and causing all kinds of trouble to them as a business. So they're very careful now to say something about it for legal reasons, I'm sure.
Well, have you got a next topic for us, Roy?
Yeah, well, we have I have a very important issue now. I tried to explain it in my blog items before. I think Linux is one in many ways. Depends how you define winning. It's being used in mobile phones. It's going to be increasingly used in tablets. We also got some statistics now from Microsoft, which show that the sales of Windows not only declined, but basically continue to decline. They've been declining for quarter after quarter now. The sales of Windows is measured in terms of things like income or, despite things like inflation, they just cannot sell Windows too well. They maybe give it for free. They give you fake numbers about Windows 7, when in fact when they sell XP, they call it Windows 7, but they don't really want you to know that they don't actually make the sale. And of course, when they give you 10 licenses of Windows to use if you wish in your business, they'll say, oh, we just sold 10 copies of Windows, or 10 more computers, but that's not the case, so it's just cheating and playing with numbers. So that's Windows under a struggle to sell quite so many copies, partly because people don't buy desktop PCs, or depends what you call a PC. Maybe you could call a tablet a PC if you think it's a personal computer, and it is a computer. And what happens now, increasingly, the Linux, especially Android-based devices, take over the market. What Microsoft is now doing is exactly what I've been expecting for years now. This is why I launched some campaigns and things like that on the sites that I run. They try to use patents. That means they lost the game, which involves trying to compete based on merit, and what they try to do is like essentially two things, or two dimensions of looking at it, is to say, well, they try to make Android more expensive because usually it's free. Usually the company can just take Android, and as long as it complies with certain requirements, they will get it for free, and they will be able to distribute as many copies as they wish. Microsoft is trying to change that to say, well, this platform is expensive to use because whenever you use it, you have to pay Microsoft. Or you have to pay some trolls, which Microsoft is paying to attack Linux, and they've been planning to do this for a while. And the situation here is one where Linux becomes more expensive, and Microsoft becomes more rich from sales of an operating system which Microsoft has to do nothing with. It has to do nothing with developing the software, researching about it, marketing, anything. They just want to sit there and treat it like a welfare system where they say, well, Linux belongs to us. We didn't do anything for it except for spreading FUD about it, but we want to be paid for it. And this is really unacceptable. And this company called Barnes & Noble, which was sued by Microsoft recently, wasn't subjected to NDA rules. What happened then, they could show you what Microsoft demanded from them before the lawsuit was launched. And now lots of people are actually seeing what Microsoft is doing behind the scenes to extort, to take money out of companies which use Linux. They can see the details in a document which was published as a defense by Barnes & Noble. And this is really nuclear stuff because it shows market abuses, and perhaps antitrust is going to kick in pretty soon. The other thing that's happened, I've been corresponding with a person from MIT who's been in touch with Steve Jobs and Bill Gates and even Nathan Myhrvold and all of these people, because he's got a patent they want, and they want to try and use that as a weapon against Linux. I haven't actually published much about it. I don't really want to name the person who's he got in contact with me because I wrote some articles about a company that not many people know about. And